Welcome to Toronto Sports Rush. It's Monday. That means it's McGuire Monday. I'm Kyle. That's Pierre. Pierre, to absolutely no one's surprise, last Friday at the draft, the Toronto Maple Leafs selected Gavin McKenna with the first overall pick. What are your thoughts?
They got the best player in the draft, and they did a good job with it. And Gavin McKenna makes Austin Matthews better. He makes Willie Nylander better. He makes Easton Cowan better. He makes John Tavares better. He makes the entire organization better. And because of that, I think the power play is going to thrive. I think they're going to get way more consistent offense from their top six forwards, and it's going to make their depth players have more defined roles. This is a tremendous step forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think they've already started to address the puck movement on the back end by going out and getting Darren Radish, by trading to bring in Emil Andre. So there's a lot to like in what Toronto's done so far. And I'm really excited for Gavin McKenna because he was definitely the justified first overall pick.
I agree with you, Pierre. And this is a player whose career we've been following since early on in his teenage years, expecting this moment, expecting this day. But we've learned a lot about him in the last week or so leading into this draft. And one of the things we learned was that the reason he chose college, or one of the reasons he chose college, was because he wanted to play against larger, more developed, faster, and stronger players to get himself ready for the NHL in a way that the WHL just couldn't. What does that say about his character?
A lot. It says how determined he is, how focused he is on being great. He wasn't intimidated by leaving a place where he's very comfortable playing for Willie Desjardins, who's a legendary coach in the Western Hockey League, who's actually coached in the National Hockey League as well. I played against Willie many moons ago. He was a smart, industrious, very, very determined offensive player. He loved having Gavin McKenna as part of his team. Two of his other players, the Ruck brothers, were drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins. It would have been really easy for Gavin McKenna to stick with the coach that he knew, stick with the Ruck brothers, who he was very familiar with. But he said, you know what? I'm going to take the road less traveled. I'm going to go down to Penn State. I'm going to play for Guy Godowski. I'm going to get pushed. I'm going to get shoved. I'm going to play in the Big Ten, which is almost like a pro league. And I'm going to find out how good I am. And I think there were some trials and tribulations for him.
Mhm.
You know, Kyle, it wasn't always about this easy path for him. He
He
got
admitted
bounced
that as well.
around.
He admitted that in an interview, saying that it did take him some time to adjust to those larger men, the stronger bodies, and the
Yeah.
style of play happening at a much different pace in the WHL. But he owned that, and he obviously responded during later on in his tenure there to become one of the elite players.
I've been in college hockey since 1979 as a player and then a coach, and I now broadcast college hockey. And my son played Division One hockey, and he plays pro hockey now. And I'll just tell you right now, college hockey's tough. And I always use this for parents. They're like, "Oh, my kid's too good for this. He's too good for that." So I say, "Let me give you a cautionary tale." Brady Tkachuk is one of the best players to go into college hockey in a long time. Trust me when I tell you, he was a dominant, dominant kid before he got to Boston University. His first year at BU and only year at BU, he had 8 goals. He had 8 goals. They were counting on 25 from him. He got 8. The next year on a non playoff team in Ottawa, he got 22. I'm just telling you, college hockey is hard. People don't realize it. I think they're starting to realize it now, but Gavin McKenna did an amazing job at Penn State. He really did a great job.
How fair or how long is, sorry, I worded that poorly, Pierre. What kind of an impact could McKenna potentially make in year one with this team? I mean, in all fairness, he's still so young and it's going to be limited to a degree, but he's not your typical hockey player. This is a number one overall pick, and they do often have an impact at the NHL level immediately.
I'm going to use this for fans in Toronto that aren't really familiar with Gavin. When Macklin Celebrini went to San Jose, that was a floundering group, not very good at all. And he opened up eyes right away. You know, Macklin was tremendous, and he's the savior of that franchise. Will Smith is part of that, obviously. Sam Dickinson is part of that. Long term, they're going to be obviously really good. I thought they stole the draft this year, you know, with what they were able to do in the first round, getting Verhoff, getting Ivan Stenberg, by going out and getting Ryan Lynn. I thought San Jose did great. But the point is, with McKenna, I look at what Celebrini did on a team that wasn't particularly good. Gavin McKenna's going to a team, Kyle, that's got Austin Matthews, that has John Tavares, that has Willie Nylander, that has Easton Cowan. There's some assets, offensive assets there that he's going to thrive playing with. And I asked Willie Desjardins this the other day, his coach in junior. I said, what's the one characteristic that really gives you confidence that he's going to really thrive his first year in pro hockey. He said his peripheral vision.
Mhm.
His vision is so good. He makes plays that most people think don't exist. And when you play with guys like Nylander, guys like Matthews, or guys like Cowan, or guys like Tavares, you have an opportunity to make that peripheral vision work for you. And I think that's one of the things that's really going to be very definable for Gavin early on. He's going to be a very impactful player. He really is.
And Pierre, another note on Macklin Celebrini, we can't forget that he was essentially the MVP of the Canadian Olympic hockey team at
Yeah.
19 years of age. It's almost fair to say that he raised the bar for young players at this level to be more prepared and more ready for an NHL game immediately.
I'm going to give Hockey Canada a lot of credit here because they know they fouled up in 2006. There
Mhm.
was a young player by the name of Sidney Crosby who was 19 years of age. I was at the training camp and they cut him. They cut him. And then they went on to have just a disastrous '06 Olympics. They didn't repeat that mistake in '08. Or in 2010, excuse me. Think about what they did by bringing Drew Doughty, who was a 19-year-old turning 20. Look at all the young Sidney Crosby's on that team. Go look at Mike Richards is on that team. All these young guys are on that team. And Hockey Canada didn't repeat it. When they picked this team to go over and play in Milano, they were not leaving Macklin Celebrini behind. And I'm convinced the next time they go to the Olympics in 2030, they won't be leaving Gavin McKenna behind either, because I think that's the kind of impact they're going to have. They learned this is what nobody wants to talk about because it's a dirty little secret. They made a fundamentally bad decision by leaving Crosby in '06. They've never repeated it since, and they're not going to repeat it going forward.
Pierre McGuire looking 4 years down the road. That's exactly why we have you here, Pierre. I wonder what the odds are on him to be captain or assistant captain on that team 4 years from now are. Let's take a quick gander at the rest of the draft. Uh, Anything else of note from the Toronto Maple Leafs in the draft? I mean, obviously their pick selections fell off from number one as they're
Yeah.
wont to do, but anyone else of note stand out to you in this draft?
No, because it's a developmental draft. This is one of
Yeah.
those drafts that's really non-definable. But what I will say, I liked how proactive they were on Brandon Carlo. It's not that Brandon can't play, Brandon can play, but I think his time was due in Toronto. It's past due, I should say. It was time for him to move on. The fact they were able to get 2 draft picks for him is huge. We'll see how those players pan out long term. So I thought that was really definable. I like the fact that they were proactive going into the draft by getting
Mhm.
Radish, by getting Emil Andre. They traded away Samuel Urson. It speaks to somebody, Akimov, who you've been so bullish on the goalie. I think Toronto understands internally they maybe had the answers for some of their goaltending issues. The one thing I will say, I'll be very interested to see who they hire as an assistant coach to replace
Yeah.
Mike Van Ryan. Mike's a really good coach, a Stanley Cup winning coach. I've known his body of work for a long time. He was a really good player, a smart player when he played at University of Michigan and then left there to go play major junior. And what I would say is this: they've got a good staff there, obviously led by Jimmy Hiller, and I think Lalonde and Sullivan will do good work. Curtis Sanford's done a really nice job with their goalies. They need to get a guy that knows how to coach defensemen. They need to get somebody really top end that knows how to coach defensemen.
Okay, Pierre, let's stick with defense for a second here. Carlo's out, Radish is in. Those movements, they're obviously not the same trade, but those movements themselves seem very representative of not just what yourself has been talking about, the way this team's D needs to take shape, but their announced vision for how this D needs to look moving forward and what kind of defense it needs to be. It does seem like Brandon Carlo's style, the type of player he is, no longer fit in that system.
It didn't fit in this system under Craig Berube. Now we'll see what the system's like under Jimmy Hiller. I know Jimmy likes to insulate his defense through the neutral zone, so we'll see how that plays out with this group. I don't think they'll be as passive resistant as what we saw from Craig Berube's team, and I don't think that played really well for Brandon Carlos. So again, moving forward, the big question mark with this group is how is Morgan Riely going to respond to this? They're going to get Tanev back, which is good news, but Morgan Riely is going to be the key to this.
Pierre, let's move immediately to Riely right now because this has become such a nonstop will they, won't they with him. Can they is the big question because of so many variables with him. But a part of me almost feels like after this long of a tenure with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Would it not be a little bit awkward at this point for him to show back up in Toronto, show up in Toronto next season in a Leafs uniform after all this talk, after all the fanfare of him moving on and the lists and the this and the that? It's just that, as if the situation wasn't awkward enough with the decline in his play. uh, all of these rumors certainly couldn't help a reappearance in a Leafs uniform.
I think it's fair to bring that up. I really do. But that being said, one of the things I know about Morgan is he's a high character person.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, most guys that have been in the league as long as he have, they've been kicked in the teeth a few times. So they kind of just let it roll off their back. And the third part is, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to be prepared to speculate. I don't think Morgan's taking any of that stuff personally. You just can't, especially if you've lived in Leafland for as long as he's had, with all the bitter disappointments, all the coaching changes, all the managerial changes, all the speculation. I think you just get a hard skin. You get a tough outer shell and you say, you know what, I'm going to soldier on. You look at this team, I think they're primed for a major resurgence. I truly believe that. Doesn't matter if John Chayka is the manager, doesn't matter if Matt Sundin is there, doesn't matter. I just look at the drafting of Gavin McKenna, how that changes a lot of their roster construction. They
Mhm.
still have to go out and get a third line center, I believe. I still think they need to be better with their depth players. I believe all that stuff. But I think those are easier to find than impact players. And I think they now have impact players that can really change the dynamic of their game.
I think there are, in fact, signs, Pierre, that this team could turn things around quicker than a lot of people had felt at the end of last season,
Agreed.
because the results last year really didn't equal to the talent. It was just, they played poorly. Maybe they gave up on the coaching. I don't know what it was, Pierre, but what would a healthy Chris Tanev mean to this
Oh,
hockey team? Like, the difference maker he could be for them if he's in this lineup consistently is hard to measure.
it is hard to measure, but it's one of those intangible things that does matter. I love the way you phrase that, Kyle, because the truth is that he's a leader. He's not just a good hockey player. He's a high character leadership kind of person. I'll never forget watching him play at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, before he got signed by Vancouver. And you could tell this guy was on a mission. He was going to play, and he definitely became a really good player in the National Hockey League because his character speaks more than anything else, and he's played so long. I think he makes a massive difference for Toronto when he's in the lineup and he's healthy.
Yeah, and speaking to his high character, he did say right near the end of last season how he was disappointed that he was only able to be out there for 11 games for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But it is what it is. An injury's an injury, and he picked a very good season to do it.
Mhm.
Because quite frankly, Pierre, even if he's in the lineup, they're probably not a playoff team. One guy would not a difference make in the results last year. An interesting rumor floating around right now: Zach Werenski has reportedly stated that he is willing to accept a trade to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, of course, that's not a trade done, but the fact that that is public knowledge at this point, it says something about the Toronto Maple Leafs still potentially being a destination for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, there's no question. So there's a lot to that. We'll start number one is Austin Matthews, and he were part of a gold medal winning team. They're very familiar with one another. I got to believe Austin has done some really good work, whether it was at the Olympics or on the phone,
Mhm.
speaking with everybody that's involved about how much he loves playing there. That's number one. Number two, he knows and appreciates the value of the original six. He's a kid that grew up just outside of Detroit. And when he was growing up, all those Detroit teams were fantastically good. Playing on an original six team in an original six market that's hockey mad, that's something that a lot of players do want to actually be part of, contrary to what some of the reporters are writing out there. Guys do
Mhm.
want to be in very intense situations, and Toronto obviously is one. And I think the third thing is, I think if you were to talk to most players, and I spoke to a good number of them over the last 5 or 6 days, they think Toronto's gonna be much better than people think. The turnaround's gonna happen a lot quicker, and I think obviously drafting Gavin helps a lot, but you
Sure.
can see how proactive they've been, by getting Radish, by going out and getting Emil Andre. They're not done making moves either, obviously, so they're gonna be fun to watch. I'm really excited about what's going on right now, and I had a chance to talk to Matt Sundin via text, probably 3 weeks ago, and, hopefully I'll be able to talk to him soon via, web, Zoom cam. But I would tell you this is he's really motivated by being part of this. He wants to be part of this, no question.
That's great to hear, Pierre. I actually went live right after the draft with our friend EJ Raddick to discuss his experience there and what he had saw. And I want to ask your opinion on something that we discussed something that I made note of, and he echoed my sentiments. After McKenna was drafted, Justin Bieber, of course, because Justin Bieber's, hey, why not? It's the NHL draft, first round pick. They went to a video message sent from Austin Matthews. And I felt in that moment that after all the rumors about Matthews, is he staying? Is he going? Is he committed to this team? Is he part of this rebuild? It seemed to me like that message was not designed so much to welcome McKenna, because I'm sure they'll be in plenty of contact. I think it was a strong message to the Toronto Maple Leafs fans that Austin Matthews is still very much all in on this team. His message was heartfelt. It was well received, hopefully, by the fan base, by McKenna himself, all of Leafs Nation. He's the captain of this team, and that message sent, that was the message sent very clearly to me when I saw that.
What a good point. Very true. I watched that same thing. I was working the draft on another network, and I completely agree with what you just said. The truth is that Austin is still the leader of the team, and guys have to understand that. I'm glad that he's insulated by a player like John Tavares and a person like John
For sure.
Tavares and a person like Christopher Tanev. Those are all really good people to have around him. But I do not think Toronto's done dealing. You can see there's an aggressive nature to what they're doing. They're not running with the herd. They're playing in their own yard. They want to make their team better by what they think, but not by what the media thinks, not by what the fans think, by what they think. And I think it's long overdue. I really do. I think it's long overdue.
And of course, Pierre, we'll close here. Speaking of the Toronto Maple Leafs not being done, free agency opens Wednesday, July 1st. What do you expect from this free agency season?
Not much.
No,
It's not
not
So
a
I
great
don't think
class.
it's a great free agency year. Obviously, a
Yeah.
lot of teams identified the need to keep their own players, and people aren't talking about it now. But I do know there was a breaking story right after the Stanley Cup final where the league is actually seriously considering expansion. And so when the league announces that, you know it's coming as a management person, you start to identify how to build your team and how players you want to keep and players maybe you expose for expansion drafts. So I know it's subtle right now and it's not getting a lot of noise, but I can tell you the decision makers, they're paying attention to that stuff big time.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of movement will be done through deals and not so much free agents being signed and whatnot. But I think it's going to be interesting nonetheless. As you state, I don't believe for a second these Toronto Maple Leafs are done. I don't know
No.
that they've even really just started, because they are committed to this rebuild. And if you're a member of Leafs Nation, if you're a member of the fan base right now, you have to at least be energized by the movement, just the movement period, because the criticism has always been this team is stagnant. They're willing to sit on their heels and take what they've got, and that is no longer the case. They're moving guys, they're expanding the roster, they've changed the coaching staff. For better or worse, at least something is getting done, Pierre.
100%. That's so well said and it's perfectly said. I couldn't agree more.
Then we'll end there, Pierre, because I'm sure I'm going to be talking to you a lot more off during this off season, because there will be breaking news. There will be McGuire Mondays. There will be TSR morning shows, and we're looking forward to seeing you on all of those, Pierre.
Thanks, Kyle. I really appreciate it.
Have a good one.